Good evening and welcome to room 108 at the campus of the University of Southern California, the School of Cinematic Arts. My name is David Weitzner, and I am director of the summer program and acting director for USC on the Google YouTube Creator Institute. This is another evening in our Distinguished Speakers Series, and we're delighted to have with us McG.
Who calls himself that?
Who calls himself that, and Pablo Frasconi. But before we get to that, I would like very much to introduce my colleague at Google and YouTube, Bing Chen, who is truly the architect of this program. Bing.
Thank you, David. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Google and YouTube, thank you so much for attending, and especially thank you so much to McG for attending, and of course, Mr. Frasconi for moderating this session. We'll keep our remarks very, very light, but we wanted to re-articulate and re-emphasize why YouTube and Google have been so interested in pursuing this sort of endeavor with a partner like the USC School of Cinematic Arts. As you all know, content creation, entertainment, whether from the creation side or the distribution or the consumption side, is something of great fascination to a lot of people. Unfortunately to date, or perhaps fortunately, it is also very difficult in a very competitive landscape. And so what we're trying to do with partners like USC is to create an environment whereby anyone can truly become a leading content creator. And that's exactly why we created the YouTube Creator Institute with USC and other partners. And so before we turn it over to the people who I think we all came to see, we'd like to especially recognize Heather Wall, who is my partner in crime from the YouTube angle, as well as, of course, David, Pablo, and, of course, Dean Elizabeth Daly.
Thank you, Bing. This has been such an exciting venture for us with Google, and thank you. We're very much enjoying it, and welcome to all of you YouTube creators. This is a very special and unusual class for us, and we're really looking forward to seeing your work. I get the pleasure this evening of introducing our distinguished speaker, McG. Thank you for being here. McG probably doesn't need an introduction, but I'm going to give you a few credits, just in case some of you have missed his biography. He actually began his career doing campaigns for the Gap and Coca-Cola, which is a great way to begin a career, and his directorial debut was with Charlie's Angels, and he set a box office record for a first-time director with that. And he also directed the smash hit sequel to Charlie's Angels, Full Throttle, as well as We Are Marshall and Terminator Salvation. And he just finished a film for 20th Century Fox, This Means War, which we're all looking forward to. I think it's being released in 2012. And his multifaceted production company is really creating media that's exciting to all of us and really setting the trends for the way content's produced and delivered. So we're delighted to have you with us. Thank you. And also to welcome our moderator for the evening, one of our faculty here at USC, Pablo Frasconi. And so let's start.
How about it for the dean? Thank you. Thanks, Elizabeth, and Bing, and David, and Heather, and the wonderful 10 participants who initiated this collaboration. And thanks to McG for coming, and this is great. I've got to start by asking you about the three-letter last name. Can you tell us how that?
It's an unfortunate joke that was played on me by my mother all those years ago, where my name is Joseph McGinty Nichol, but my uncle was Joe, and my grandpa was Joe, and McGinty, my middle name, is my mother's maiden name. And from the day I was born, we were all three Joes were in the same house. So my mother's mother said, call him McG, short for McGinty. And this is, Kalamazoo, Michigan, and, when I was born in like 1982. So it's a sharp group to get that joke. But from the day I was born, I was called McG, and then of course by the time I get to Hollywood, everybody thinks it's like some hip-hop thing that I've prescribed to myself. And I used to make music videos, and I literally did a video with Puffy, and he came in, he's like, I thought you were black. And I'm like, here I am, and we went on to do our thing and keep it going. But it's been unfortunate, and it's a really it's been a real burden. I mean, I joke about it, but it's been a tremendous burden because I think the default setting when you hear that name, you go, what an asshole. I mean, who likes that guy? And, you know, just like the from Harry Knowles and the sort of Hall H of Comic-Con on down, it's just, it's a fun name to kick. And it's unfortunate because I'd love to get out of the way of it, but I can't go back to calling myself Joseph. It's just not who I am. I mean, I've always been McG, and if you look at my second grade picture, it says McG, and, you know, it's just, I got to just sort of ride it out at this point.
And your first passion was music, and tell us how that, is there a moment that crystallized that collaboration?
Well, I grew up in a house filled with music and filled with film. My dad was a scientist. He worked at the Upjohn Company, and that was Kalamazoo, Michigan. But my parents loved film, and my dad would listen to jazz records, and my sister would be listening to disco, and my brother would be listening to Led Zeppelin. My brother has a PhD in music that he got here at USC. And, you know, we grew up in this cacophony that somehow made sense to me. It was very comforting as I would go to sleep every night listening to that music and watching some of my favorite films. And then with the advent of videotape, I got into every day I would rent 2 or 3 movies, and you'd be able to see every Hitchcock picture, you know what I mean, and study where they hid those cuts in rope, and, you know, really deconstruct how it would all get done and have the opportunity to see so much more than what would come on KTLA on Channel 5 or what happened to be playing at, you know, the art house cinema or, you know, going to a Rocky Horror Show at midnight. You really were able to take in so much more material, and that allowed me to get much more familiar with, you know, everything from seeing Risky Business 100 times to Belgian Third Wave, you know, so you really got a chance to ingest a great deal of material and then think about, hey, how'd they do that? And I like that, and I don't like that, and I want to be like that, and I don't want to be like that, and you start to create your own imprint. So that's basically my environment of just the synthesis of music and film and, you know, the advent of the video camera as well. I would just go out and just sort of a real do-it-yourself culture and photograph my kind of jackass friends doing off-the-wall things, and then I held, you guys don't know this, but an old RM 350, I think it was called, a 3/4-inch machine where you'd cut tape to tape, and just put that in my closet and started to cut together little, you know, video press kits and what have you to sort of capture the personalities of my friends, so I just got after it.
When you were directing musicians, you had a style that, as if they were actors. What kind of connection did you have to make to those musicians?
Well, I grew up largely in Orange County. Everybody knows it here, just about an hour south of here. And when I was in high school and college, it was a period of Seattle being real big with, you know, Nirvana and Pearl Jam, and they were up there, and it was the Pacific Northwest, and it was really rainy, and they were bummed out, and they were angry and staring at their shoes and just kind of doing their thing. And we were all from the suburbs. And we were a function of these planned, tract housing communities and this sort of general malaise of divorce culture. And my parents are still married, but all my friends were, you know, children of divorce. And, you know, Zach De La Rocha was this one kid who was the only black kid in Irvine, and he went on to be the singer of Rage Against the Machine. And, you know, the kids in Stone Temple Pilots were in Huntington Beach, which is nothing but a grid of north-south and east-west streets, and it doesn't really have any character. And, you know, you know, to the guys in Sublime that were from Long Beach and, you know, trying to find a voice and do their thing. And, you know, we were so convinced that what we had wasn't cool. We felt like you had to be at least from LA or New York or London to be worthwhile. And we were always trying to overcome and sort of apologize for our environment. So we created this larger-than-life, colorful thing that, you know, I said in jest earlier was kind of a Busby Berkeley, bless you, reaction to the Seattle thing, which was just kind of stare at your shoes and be bummed out. So we did these big, elaborate, colorful, you know, musical extravaganzas when MTV was playing videos, and that's how I sort of developed my style by saying, I want the color and the energy of Hype Williams, and I want to be subversive like Spike Jonze. And I just tried to bring those two together and, you know, working with, you know, be it Sublime or, you know, this hard rock outfit, Korn, that came down from Bakersfield. I just started to push film through the camera week in, week out. And then, you know, I had the opportunity to start working with bands from England and New York and everywhere else. And then I did the commercials, and then I ran into Drew Barrymore, and we did Charlie's Angels.
There's a cultural myth that she, I don't know, maybe it's true, that she pulled you out of music videos into feature film?
Yeah, she's sort of a rock and roll girl. She was running around with the guitar player from Hole, which is this rock and roll band that, it's Courtney Love's band, and, she's always liked rock, so she was really on top of the bands and that scene, and at the time they'd put your name at the bottom of MTV if you were a director, and it was kind of, a nice thing. And, she'd heard of me, but she still wasn't hot to take a meeting with me. She canceled on me seven or eight times, and I mean, that's just, if nothing else, like, that would be the one thing I would impart to all these young faces out here. It's just like, no one's going to give you anything. I mean, you have to absolutely anticipate getting kicked in the ribs time and time again, and that's what separates the wheat from the chaff. I mean, if you love to write, you're going to write, and if you love to direct, you're going to direct, and if you want to get after it and make it happen, you're going to make it happen, and you'll overcome all those setbacks, because everybody's got that story. It's not like me, I overcame the odds. Everybody has to overcome the odds. So Drew canceled on me 7 or 8 times and begrudgingly finally met with me, and she's kind of arms crossed, didn't want to be there. And, we went in and talked about how we thought we could make a successful female action picture at a time when people said you can't do that. I mean, Sigourney Weaver ran around in her underwear in Alien, but it never really got the credit it deserved for, a feminine empowerment picture. And we thought we could be aware and have a little bit of a wink, but still have some kick-ass action and bring in the guys from Hong Kong, Wu Ping and those guys that did The Matrix, and really create a new language. People thought it was crazy, but she threw her arm around me and helped me get it done at Sony.
And you directed actors like they were musicians in Charlie's Angels.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was sort of the hybrid. I mean, my whole thing in music videos was to try to tell stories and make mini movies. Those were the pieces that I responded to the most, and that's what Spike did very well, and Mark Romanek did it very well, David Fincher did it very well, Michel Gondry did it very well. And at that time, when we all got into film, it was a huge burden to be from music video. You would just be like, oh, you're a music video guy, you can't handle dialogue, and, I say with respect, listen to that group that came out of the same class, so to speak. I mean, literally, from Michael Bay to Michel Gondry to David Fincher to Mark Romanek, to Francis Lawrence to Spike Jonze, everybody, we were all kind of doing it together, and we all have very, very different imprints. But it was a result of having the opportunity to push so much film through the camera that, you got to shoot on the mountaintop and underwater and at night and during the day and deal with difficult personalities, coming out of the trailer and getting them to the set and trying to get them to cooperate. So in a sense, it was an excellent training ground to get ready for features and storytelling, but still we had to deal with, first-time guy, music videos, they can't handle any storytelling, and I think David Fincher has gone on to refute that.
What was remarkable about the film was that it was truly a transgenerational movie, is that I saw it with my 10-year-old, and I felt equally as engaged with the movie as she did. It seemed to have both an authenticity of a youth film, but also a retro. Was that a conscious?
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to be cognizant of the 70s thing, but do it in a language that was decidedly of the new era. We made that picture in 2000, so we wanted to speak to the new millennium, or millennia. What is the correct term of art? Who studies that sort of thing around here in college? So we wanted to be, cognizant of the past, but looking toward the future. And it was sort of a rock and roll picture, and it was a Papa Wheelie kind of movie. And, I like that kind of exuberance because I know my own life is small and difficult. And, I had a very active Walter Mitty kind of dream life. And that's why I would always try to create a world that was much larger than that planned community culture of Orange County, where the oldest building is 25 years old. And there's really not a lot of history there. So you dream about history and you dream about things that have a more substantial root system than your own. So I would just sort of create out of my mind. And it's also interesting because that culture gave birth to, there's a bunch of kids in here wearing, a Volcom t-shirt. That all grew out of my friend's garage, and that whole thing of, this guy Bob Hurley, who had Hurley and the Quicksilver culture and snowboarding and skateboarding. And like anything, if you look at 70s England with the punk rock movement, they never thought they were making any contribution to, in Motown, those guys never thought they were doing anything to what we were. You never know when you're in the moment until you look back and you talk about Spielberg and Lucas. I mean, who knew? They didn't know. They were just passionate about running around and making pictures, and, from THX to American Graffiti, let's just hang off the side of the car and make it happen.
In my mind, I see that film right next to Roy Lichtenstein's paintings, the pop art artist. Was that a conscious connection?
Yeah, I mean, that sense of chroma, you know what I mean, definitely, and that color impact. I mean, I've always had just a great deal of affinity for, you know, the three-strip process. And I was always doing my best to sort of replicate that to the best of my ability and really get that luxuriant quality. Like I'm looking at, you know, the West Side Story stuff out there in that great book that had the corresponding costume tears and, you know, in the script. It was really, really cool. And just the luxuriant qualities of those reds and the syrupy nature of the blacks in that picture. And I always said, why don't films look as beautiful as they used to? And I would always, you know, go down and in the telecine process, which is now the digital intermediate process, I would push the chroma and boost the highlight and crush down the blacks, all trying to get that sort of three-strip thing and make it look as luxuriant as my memory of those pictures. And Roy Lichtenstein.
Cool. You have a degree in psychology.
Yes, I have a long, well-documented neurotic past, and I had Eddington disease where I thought, well, if I immerse myself in studying about my problems, I'm going to be able to cure them. And I went, you know, I have a very personal story with USC, in fact. When I was 15, I started to develop a real anxiety disorder, you know, that's plagued me my whole life. You know, but not like a cute, fun anxiety disorder, like a really debilitating bad one where I didn't know what was going on with my body, and I would just kind of like, you know, my heart would start racing and I couldn't control my breathing, and it was really scary. And I would imagine there's some people out here who experience that to some degree. And you know, it kicked in right when I was about 15 going on 16, and then I applied to USC. And I got into USC, but I'd become so agoraphobic that I couldn't really get up to USC.
Film school?
No, just undergrad. Okay. And but I got in, and my sister went here, and you know, my brother went here, you know, like the whole thing, and I really wanted to come here, and it was very emasculating and very embarrassing, and my friends were kind of like, what's wrong with you? How come you never leave, you know, our area? And it was awful. And I came up here, and I was at USC for one night. I was at USC for one night, and I sort of just freaked out, and I couldn't handle it. And you know, with my tail between my legs, I went back to Orange County, and then because the UC system starts substantially later, I was able to start at UCI. And I just sort of suffered through it and, you know, didn't really ever get a leg up on it. And I started to get a little better, you know, to where I could finally stretch it out and, you know, just go to Los Angeles and function. But all through the Charlie's Angels picture and the second Charlie's Angels picture, I had this problem. And I missed all these great things of, you know, bands I was working with getting signed and going to New York, and I'd make fake reasons why I couldn't go to New York. And, you know, when Prince Charles calls and says, hey, we want you and Cameron and Drew and Lucy to come to Buckingham Palace and watch Charlie's Angels, and my date's the head of Sony, this woman Amy Pascal, and you can't go, it's crappy, you know what I mean? It's really bad. And it all culminated with the Superman experience, when I was on Superman getting ready to make that movie, and you know, Warner's was like, we're going to shoot the picture in Sydney, Australia. And I tried to tell everybody, I'm like, I can't get on a plane and go to Sydney. I'm not capable of doing it. And it's a real gentleman that was running Warner's at the time, this guy Alan Horn, and it was not really part of my persona that I would have this problem, because I was kind of like the big, like, come on, let's do it, let's climb the mountain. And they'd be like, you're fine. And, you know, cut to the day where I was supposed to go down to Australia, private Gulfstream, you know, gassed at Van Nuys Airport, Warner's jet, ready to go, and I couldn't do it. And, you know, it ended up on the cover of the New York Times and the LA Times, and just, it was terribly, terribly humiliating. But that was my kind of rock bottom moment to go see, you know, two women in Los Angeles that could slowly start to help me get over my anxiety disorder and get on planes and, you know, be more healthy and fulfill my dreams as a director, most particularly. And, you know, I got better at that moment. And now I've been around the world a bunch of times and gotten better, and now I'm free to direct pictures all over the place, and it feels good. But that was like a big burden, and it's deeply, intimately tied to SC in a really, really shitty, lonely night. You know, laugh it up.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry I asked.
You didn't know what you were opening there.
I was thinking
Can I have a
more.
hug, please? Thank you. All right.
I was thinking more of, first, of how it would affect your directing with that background in psychology, working with actors.
Well, that was sort of a secondary gain, to coin a psychological term. It's just that, you know, first of all, I think that having that problem gave me a great deal of empathy for other people. Okay, so I never ever looked down like, you know, I always felt like, hey man, I got my own huge cross to bear, so I never felt any entitlement. And I grew up in high school, I was a runt, I was 5'2", I had an orange afro and a neck gear and dolphins and shoe skates, and I was ridiculed, and you're like, hey, are you a surfer? I'm like, I got pummeled by the surfers and all the water polo guys that went on to play water polo for USC. And, I applied some of my psychology training to interface with big personalities and just sort of listen and help me, I don't want to use the word manipulate, but ultimately get what I want and have the people that I was working with feel good about it also. So it was a big sort of secondary gain.
Gosh, do you have a story? I'm sure they'd love to hear how you psychologically manipulated someone.
No, I think the key to anything is always make it feel like it's the other person's idea. You know what I mean?
Very good.
If you want to get something done and you've got somebody who doesn't want to do that, if you can find your way around where you make it feel like it's their idea and they become proprietary of what you're trying to get accomplished, you'll get to that point a lot more succinctly.
So you're speaking of dealing with producers and distributors.
Everybody. I mean, it's a constant battle. I mean, listen, I drove down here today, right now, having a DEF CON 5 complete freak out about the movie that I'm making now, arguing about the budget, arguing about giving up your gross position to go into a pool and do this and all. It never ends. I mean, Steven and George, they'd come back and go, we still have headaches. We still got problems. They were fighting over the marketing of Super 8. They were, the whole 9 yards, into Spielberg and Bay arguing about Final Cut on Transformers. It just never ends. It's always a struggle. So that kind of struggle either appeals to you or it turns you off, and I hope it appeals to you. So, it sort of gives you energy to attack the day.
And how do you cope with this? Are you a meditator like David Lynch, or no?
Absolutely not. I mean, for me, it's just, I'm very expressive to the best of my ability. I'm not really a secretive person. And I have like this wastebasket, that I talked about that was this sort of problem, that was this sort of quiet secret and this thing that was such a difficult thing to bear for so long that it strangely made me very healthy in all these other aspects of my life because I put all my negative energy into this one receptacle. So
a physical wastebasket, or a
psychological
okay.
wastebasket. You know what I mean? That I just sort of put it into that, and it helps me sleep well at night, and helps me, have a little bit of a spring in my step, and approach each day with a gusto of being excited about making film. And as hard as it is, it's like anything worthwhile. It's very difficult and ultimately very satisfying.
And then you transitioned into drama from Charlie's.
Yeah, I mean, my path is the following. It's just, I grew up largely in Orange County, very active music scene. I was a still photographer, and I was very involved in film. So my career is the exact amalgam of those elements. And I saw what this guy, Rick Rubin, did out of an NYU dorm room where it's, white Jewish guy reached down and said, hip-hop is all over the streets of Manhattan and Brooklyn and the Bronx, and I want to be a part of that because I like that culture and I like that music. And he made Def Jam happen. And then there was an outfit here in Los Angeles called Delicious Vinyl that did it with Tone Loc and a kid that went to USC named Young MC. And, I said, I want to be like those guys. So I went to school. I was pre-med, but I didn't want to go to medical school because I was tired of being broke. So I went out and I got a job, and I probably delivered to you, David, because I worked for a promotional marketing firm called Clean Fun. And we delivered Greg Washer. And we made slap wraps and T-shirts and crap, and those T-shirts that you made for Goober and Peters. And, the whole time I'm dreaming about putting this record label together because I'm surrounded by all this talent. Gwen Stefani's in Anaheim, and like I said, the Sublime guys, and everybody's doing their thing. And I'm like, if I could just get a few bucks together and get in the studio, I could do my Rick Rubin thing. And my best friend at the time was another kid who went to USC, that indie cult hero, Mark McGrath. And where are the giggles on that? He's the most pop sellout guy of all time. Thank you. Is it Jackson? Thank you, Jackson. Jesus. But he was a very good-looking kid, and I'm like, your songs aren't that great, but you're super foxy. It's the time of MTV. Let's make a video. And my friend is a guy named Mark Santoni, whose uncle is Leonetti, who worked with the Leonetti rental group. And he could get the cameras and the grip and the electric and what have you, and I didn't know what that meant. And I said, let's just do it. And we stole the locations, got chased by the cops, and shot in an ice rink at 2 in the morning, and did all this, super do-it-yourself stuff. And we made this video that I cut on an RM350 and 3/4-inch tape, and I had no training. I just immersed myself in it and went for it. And, I cut it together and kind of mastered it and then spit it out to green VHS half-inch cassettes, and then I placed those green cassettes inside of a pizza box, and I had it delivered as a pizza to all the record label heads around the country. And Rick Rubin never got back to me, but a guy named Doug Morris did, who ran Atlantic Records at the time, and it was a very sort of classic Hollywood kind of, sign those guys. and he gave him this big, crazy record contract, and that was, one of those humiliating moments where the band sort of got to fly to New York, and I, woke up at 3 in the morning with a knife in my heart and crawled out of my own room window because all the guys in the band, we all spent the night, at my apartment because we were going to go to LAX together. And I mean, it was really, really difficult and painful, but they all flew to New York and signed the record deal. And whenever, when they came home, we made the records and made the videos. And I started making all the other videos and developing my style as a director. So, yeah.
So what was the transition from Charlie's Angels to We Are Marshall? How did that happen?
Well, We Are Marshall, I don't know if anybody's seen it in the room, but that was a very cathartic picture for me because it's about a plane crash. So I wanted to make that picture. What's happening?
Yeah, your microphone's covered by your lapel.
Okay. How can I help?
Mine?
Check 1, 2. If it weren't for a mic check, I'd have no check at all. So, I did the Charlie's pictures, then I got thrown off Superman. And, I'm looking around and I start meeting with these 2 women and I start to slowly get over my fears and control my, sort of brain-body relationship to some degree. And then this piece of material comes around that's about a plane crash. And I know that if I make this movie, I'm going to have to fly into Huntington, West Virginia and land at that airport where there's that bald spot on the mountain from where the plane crashed on approach in 1970. And, it was really, I see the Nolan posters out there. It was really my sort of Batman moment in the cave where, like, Batman was fucking afraid of bats. And if he was going to be the Batman, he had to go down there and just give himself to the bats and let the bats wash over him and lean into it, And I wanted to make that picture as sort of a final statement, dagger into the heart of my fear of flying. And that was why I did that. And I liked it, and it was a different move for me as well because people were like, "You're that pop-colored, disposable guy." I'm like, "No, I'm not." And I wanted to make that movie, and I made that movie, and that was that.
So you, in a way, you changed your brand at that.
Yeah, but
juncture.
I never wanted to be pigeonholed. I never wanted that, and because it's the privilege of the audience to put you in a box and say, "Oh, you're the guy that calls himself McG." You make the OC on television. You do dancey music videos and Charlie's Angels. You're that disposable piece of pop candy. And there's no real shame in that, but I wanted to be more than that. I got my start also from Quentin, who had a company called A Band Apart with a guy named Lawrence Bender. Lawrence produces all of Quentin's movies, and they had a sort of commercial music video company, and they took me under their wing. And when Drew was putting me up for Charlie's Angels, Quentin also called Amy Pascal and said, "This guy can do it." And, so I wanted to be like Quentin, who I thought was elegant and subversive in his own way and playful, but decidedly serious and very accomplished and literate and excellent. So I think all directors want to be someone they're not.
How did the Terminator franchise come your way?
I was foolish enough to think I could outgrow the shadow of Jim Cameron. And I thought, because that one was, and we did a lot of things right in that picture, and we did a few things wrong in that picture, and I thought that when that first announcement first came out, literally that was the whole community was like, absolutely not, we hate McG, there's no way. That was the feedback vibe of, the Ain't It Cool news culture and just kind of everything that was going on, like I joke about Comic-Con, but for real, that whole world, the whole passionate hardcore was like, we don't want this guy. We don't want him to be our carrier of the Terminator torch. And I say with respect, I thought the third one fell off a little bit, and I thought I could reinvigorate it and do it well. And I was encouraged by what Nolan did with Batman, and I wasn't a huge fan of what Schumacher did with those last Batman pictures and what have you. So I figured, well, if I do all the right things, I get the blessing of Jim Cameron. So I went and kissed the ring and talked to Jim about doing it, and he was super cool and supportive. He's supportive to this day. We talked about hiring Sam Worthington, they were shooting Avatar at the time, and Sam came and did the picture. And then I went and got Christian, which I thought would be the biggest gift of intent to the passionate, and that felt good. And then we got Jonah Nolan, Chris's brother, who wrote The Dark Knight, come in and write it, because we got along well and we were buddies. And we tried to do all the right things, and I think we got most of that picture right, except for the very ending. And there was an original ending that I feel if we would have shot, it would have had a lot more teeth. And it was a much, much darker ending, and it was effectively, the Terminator wins and kills everybody, and it's the end.
No.
And we just sort of chickened out and didn't do that ending, and I regret it. And we should have done it. But I thought Christian was great. I thought Sam was great. And you keep on trucking.
How did that Christian Bale rant get out into the public?
Well, that is totally understandable. I mean, I don't know a project I've ever done that didn't have something like that. Okay, start there. And the biggest problem with that is like, I don't know, the Stanley Cup is going on right now, okay? And I'm no huge sports, expert, but there's a code in hockey of like the big guy only fights the other big guy. And there's this whole unwritten culture, in hockey, for example, if this is what you do and this is how you behave and this is how you play the game properly. And on a film set, it's the same thing, okay? What happens at our Sunday night dinner table stays at our Sunday night dinner table, and you never make that breach in sound or film or in the lab or in the trailer houses or anything. There's an unspoken that transcends any NDA or anything else, that you never ever share that, and talking about Jim Cameron, there's certainly a moment where Kate Winslet is naked in Titanic, right? Well, there were obviously moments where she was articulating her body where her body looked less than charitable that were photographed by my friend Russell Carpenter, who was the DP on that show. And those don't get on the internet, those stay in the vault, and you protect your actor and you don't let the outtake get out there. And the fact that that would be recorded when there's sort of a known, hey, cut, man, don't roll and stand down, cut sound, cut picture, cut. That was the first violation that never should have been recorded. And then the larger violation is that it got out into the world because somebody was probably filing in, the information into the PAX system, or just going into the DVD dailies and stumbled upon that at the end of a take and thought, oh, can I be cool and get this and post this somewhere so everybody can be amused? And I mean, it was very hurtful to Christian and his family, and he's really a nice guy and he's extraordinarily intense, and that's the way I want it. I'm not trying to make a war picture and have everybody walk through the day, so just the fact that under any circumstances that got out there, that's the problem. It was a violation of, what we talk about at this table stays at this table.
Whoa. Reality just slipped for me for a moment there.
Yeah.
We're all working now with the umbrella of transmedia and looking at your career. It seems to me you've embraced so many of these forms.
Mm-hmm.
Does that word ring true to the palette that you see in front of filmmakers today?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, look, I only have two things to say. I'm not wise. I'm learning every day, but one thing is the path that's in front of you, all of you guys as filmmakers, is extraordinarily difficult. So you have to just lean into the difficulty, one. And two, I was poking around before we went, live, just like, what's going on? What have you written? This young man over here is a writer, and, all the directors in there, what have you shot? And I just say with the greatest respect, get off your ass, because, directors direct and writers write and actors act, and if you love it, you're going to do it, and nothing can stop you, and you don't have the excuse any longer of when I was your age and I was going to school. You had to sign up and get in line for the 16mm equipment, do your thing, and have your friend hold a boom and figure it out and make your own little mini Wes Anderson experience. And now, I say from the bottom of my heart, you can get an HD camera, with a very, very satisfactory, to say the least, lens on it. For no dough, it's easy to get. And never mind that, you could shoot what you want to shoot on an iPhone. And I really mean that. And it's just like, oh, I don't have a reel, I don't have this. It's like, you have access to actors here, okay? Wake up tomorrow and call one of your writer buddies and say, I want to do a scene where she breaks up with him at the coffee shop and turns and calls her friend and confesses that she's pregnant. I mean, just like the simplest little dramatic scene. And you come up and Dean, would you be so good as to join me? I'm hardwired in. Yeah, well, have a seat. I'm just hardwired in here.
Okay.
But if you did this shot, like, all you got to do is, if you guys look at each other, you get your master, camera right, camera left. Come over, get this in 2 sizes, do a dirty over right here, then punch in inside of it so you get there, and then come around and do it on the other side. And there's that scene, slam it into Final Cut, add your favorite, Kings of Leon song, and you've just shot a scene that, I give you my word, George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, Kathleen Kennedy, Frank Marshall, Amy Pascal Good is good. Nobody's going to say, oh, I would have liked it if it were just a little more technically proficient. Nobody gives a shit. They're going to surround you with incredibly proficient technicians. Okay? But if you can capture that moment of he thought she was coming in to say, I had a great time last night, when are we doing it again? And she comes in and says, I'm here to break up with you. And then you realize that it's from a place of pain, and she rolls out of it and calls her best friend and says it came back positive. Go to black. All of a sudden you got a scene. And people go, wow, you're that kid that did that scene in the coffee shop? And you do it right here, you know, on a bench. You do anything you want. You do it on an iPhone. You don't get caught up in the technical bullshit. Just get it done. That is the key to the future. I mean, we just did it. We just put a scene on its feet and we just did it. And you could literally do that with like one of those little gorilla clips in your iPhone and get it done and, and do it. I wouldn't. I mean, I'd grab, a camera, look at this facility. Everybody's got access to cameras, call Jim Jannard with, the Red camera system, and they'll loan you one. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Once again, the dean, everybody. You were quite good.
Thank you.
So if the dean and I can break up on camera,
Yes.
what's going to happen to the studio system if we can make films with iPhones?
I mean, look, you still need scale on occasion, even though that culture is going to break through, and you could start to get closer to a 300 looking synthetic picture that, could really be exciting. But I mean, you have to get out and you have to, shoot some expanse sometime to get your David Lean, feeling. So that's always going to be difficult and fundamentally expensive to some degree. But the bottom line is, it's a tremendous threat. Who's seen, you guys watch Hearts of Darkness, a documentary on Apocalypse Now? It's a spectacular picture. You should see it, whenever you get a chance. It's made by Coppola's wife. And, he talks about, technology, and that picture was made when they were making the picture in the 70s. And, he's talking about the ease of access, and he's like, some fat kid in Des Moines is going to make the next great picture, and it's true. You can really make great content now, and then even more particularly, share it with as many people as you want. I mean, Charlie bit my finger. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, it's the biggest YouTube thing of all time, or even, Bale's thing. It catches fire, and if people like it, they like it. And you can go out and shoot your material and post it, and people will be all over it if they indeed respond to it. And it's again, the privilege of the viewer to say, hey, I like that, hey, I don't like that. And if you can't get kicked in the ribs, then you're in the wrong gig.
So the studios will then begin to merge with the iPhone producer?
I mean, here's the thing. I mean, still today, if you want to get your picture released and you want to see it, I go back further. I did a lot in the music business, okay? The music business is gone. It's gone. My closest affiliate's a guy named Jimmy Iovine. He's the most important guy in music, okay? It's gone. He had to make Beats headphones with Dr. Dre and put all his artists on American Idol, because that world is gone. So I've seen one industry evaporate, to your point, gone. And everybody said, well, okay, film's next. Yes and no. Okay, who's your favorite band? Me? You. Spoon. Who just answered me? You, Spoon? You're too young to even know Spoon. Okay, Spoon. When you buy your Spoon record, okay, do you feel compelled to call your friends and sit down and share that experience? Not particularly, right? It's your Spoon record that you kind of listen to on your own. But don't you like going to the movie theater and having the fundamentally communal experience of sitting and seeing it and the 100-foot screen? And it's not a direct one-to-one relationship. There's a social component to movie viewing that protects the movie theater to some degree. David, we had a conversation about VOD and, what have you, where, I don't know, given the opportunity to sit at your spot and look at your 60-inch, LCD or plasma, queue up your, Apple TV, scroll through, and if something's going day and date, maybe you don't get off your ass and go to the theater across the street at the UV or whatever. You just stay home and you pay a premium and you do it there because you don't need to be rich anymore to have a kick-ass 5.1 system and do your thing. So it's going to change, and furthered by the other thing of like, well, you guys will never get your content out there because you don't know the little Italian guy shuttling to the Cinema Paradiso theater with the film cans under his arms, and you can't get it in there. But that's all changing because it's becoming digital. It's going to be the equivalent of hitting an email to get your picture in Moscow. Okay, and I mean in a hurry. You know, it's not like it's going to take 50 years. No, it's happening every minute. IMAX is going into China. Everything is moving so quickly. And you know, that's going to make it easier too. If you go, look, I got a 90-minute film that I really think is great. I think it's better than the studio fare that's coming out on any given Friday. And you cut a relationship with the guy that owns AMC, and you see, what is it, AMC and Landmark that got together to start their own distribution? And Regal, excuse me. It's a different paradigm. And there's going to be a seismic shift, and we're living it minute to minute. But I still think there's something to be said about, you know, being fired up to see the big event movies that come out in big rooms with big sound and big screens and sharing it with your friends. I mean, it's more fun to see The Hangover and see Bridesmaids with a bunch of people where you laugh together. It's more fun to see the handiwork of ILM on a 100-foot screen than it is on your, you know, MacBook Pro. You know, that's the difference. Whereas, you know, the Spoon record, I just want to listen to it on my own anyway. You know, be it in my car, be it in my dorm room, be it in my apartment. You know, I'll enjoy it with my friends, but there's no fun. You fundamentally are more inclined to say, hey, friends, let's go see The Hangover. And I think that's the protective component of film in the theater.
I'm more worried about television. I cut the cable this week, and I'm curious how many people here do not have cable to their television set? Oh, it's easily half do not have. So what's happening to television? Are you worried about that?
Well, I mean, listen, it goes back to almost a Timothy Leary theory of screens, okay? There's a screen in your pocket, is there not? It's called a cell phone, but it's a screen, okay? And we're getting fast enough with the screen. What do you want to watch? You want to watch Godfather? Put it on your cell phone. It's just not very fun to watch The Godfather on your cell phone, okay? And there's a screen that sits on your desk. It's probably 13 inches, and it's a screen, okay? There's a screen that hangs on your wall, and it's 32 inches or 55 inches that you got it at Best Buy, and, you know, hangs on your wall. It's a screen. And there's a screen behind us now. And it's 100 feet, and it's a screen. And it's a means to watch material, to watch content, which is going to be your playground to do what you want to do to turn on your audience. So I'm confirming your feeling of like television. I mean, we make television shows, and I kid with the guy who runs Warner Brothers Television, a guy named Peter Roth. He's like, McG, that feels like an 8 o'clock Wednesday ABC show. Like, what the fuck are you talking about, Peter? You know? You guys watch what you want, when you want, how you want to watch it, on your computer, you know, DVR. You feel no sense of appointment television, other than sometimes you're so fired up to see it, you know, the earliest you can see it is when it comes on for the first time. So those days are ending, and, you know, the screen of your computer and the screen that you supposedly call a television, that line has been so blurred as to be non-distinguishable. Or indistinguishable.
Do you make movies differently for the one that's going to be shown on a 3-inch screen and a 100-foot screen?
I think that there's, you know, I mean, what is it? Is it a term of ergonomics? I think that people are able to quantify how long the audience is willing to stare at any given screen. So the answer is no, because I don't think people are watching movies on, you know, handheld devices. You know, who's watched a full-fledged movie on their iPhone? You?
3 people. Yeah.
What the hell is wrong with you? What movie do you watch on your iPhone?
I actually watched Toy Story 3, actually.
Did you cry? The furnace scene? It's awesome.
It was in the airport, too, so I was surrounded by people staring at me like...
Yeah, but it was in the airport, and it was a good backup thing, and your plane was delayed.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, okay, but you get my drift. I mean, they're able to quantify, look, people aren't really doing that, you know, so not so much. Even though a tremendous means for seeing film is the television, so to speak, meaning a 30 to 60 inch platform, because a lot of times you miss the picture in the theater, and then you go and you watch it when it comes across your field of vision on cable or, you know, DirecTV or what have you. So, but no, not really. I mean, you know, you make a picture and you're in the viewfinder, and then you're at like a, you know, tiny little 11-inch Sony CRT that's right there. And I mean, you tape it off and you get your aspect ratio where you want it. And, you know, sometimes you have bigger monitors, but I've never made a perception difference. And I'm really into, you know, David Lean Expanse and getting those big exteriors and opening
You
up pictures.
watch movies on small screens up here and
Yeah,
video, and
and I've never really made that distinction, and I prefer the experience of seeing it on a large screen.
well, I mean, I grew up with two networks, 2.5 networks, CBS, NBC, and ABC, and which is the half network. And I have 2.5 networks now, and my computer is either on open to YouTube or Google are the two main venues that I'm looking at.
Yeah.
We're here because there are 10 YouTube participants that are young media makers, media creators, who are just beginning their careers, and they're doing all kinds of things. Some are doing comedies, and some are doing documentaries, and some are doing fiction pieces, some are doing experimental films, prismatic films. Can you possibly, before we get to specific questions from the audience, can you give general advice to someone who's in their 20s now?
Yeah, but it's very simple. It's just be excellent. You know what I mean? Because you have the opportunity. I mean, there was a time when you could be excellent and not have the opportunity. Truly, I mean, that was a bona fide, genuine excuse. You could be stuck in Nebraska, and who would know? Now you can be in Nebraska all day long, and shoot that, get it into YouTube, and do your thing. And if people respond, they respond, and it's so viral, and so people just say, hey, check this out. This was great, and great is great, and water finds its own level. So it's an incredible opportunity, an incredible time to be a comedic talent, to be a dramatic talent, to do your thing, and get it out there. Because you can. And that's the funniest thing. It's like, you look at YouTube. What if YouTube decided to get more specifically into the content business? And I don't know what the corporate philosophy is with that, but what if YouTube went, why do we need Warner Brothers? Why do we need NBC? I mean, NBC, how many eyeballs does NBC get a day? Okay, well, this is what we get a day. Oh, that's a lot. Okay, how many eyeballs did they get at the AMC Cineplex? This is what we got, And imagine if YouTube just jumped up and went, we YouTube are going to have the exclusive distribution of the new Steven Spielberg, J.J. Abrams feature film. It's called Super 8. It's Super 9. It's never going to go to the theaters, and it's never going anywhere else. If you want to see it, you got to come here. That would be breakthrough. And I know Soderbergh did it with Bubble, but it was this big and nobody really cared. But if somebody really goes to that place of, no, this is the new, we made this picture for $50 million, $150 million, but it's going on YouTube. Or, a Google platform, or whatever that platform may be. That's a game changer. And imagine if that happened. I mean, what do you think would happen? What do you guys think would happen? Who's your favorite filmmaker? Imagine if Chris Nolan just went out, the next thing I did a deal with YouTube. It's just going straight to YouTube. I'm fed up. I made the picture with YouTube. We figured out a way to quantify hits and value and, capture the monetary end of it, and we're doing it that way. And, that's that. And I hope that enough people have a way to extrapolate that incoming message beyond their, little screen and onto a larger screen, which most of us have the ability to do. I mean, those screens hanging on your wall are nothing but the same. They're computer screens, So we're getting there. It's just who's going to be the first one to dive in and really give you something you're excited about. Like, what movie are you guys excited about that's yet to come out this summer? Really? Me too, but doesn't it feel decidedly, who thinks that picture looks decidedly young? Like Fantastic Four young. But it looks like crap? Yeah? Who said that? All right, hey, it's your privilege. Yeah, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. I like Ryan Reynolds. Did you see Buried? Yeah. He's quite good in Buried. And who knows? Okay, point is, Green Lantern, lots of production value, big visual effects, doing its thing. If that's just like it's never coming to the theaters, it's just coming out Friday, it's exclusive, there's a big, trumped up release on YouTube, I think that'd be a big deal. Not to mention, you want to talk about global? I mean, are you guys not global? There you go. Well, that's the thing. I mean, we don't have that ability, I would imagine, unless you guys are cooking that up in the lab.
We've got the largest repository of 3D content in the world, actually, so it's definitely doable. You just got to get glasses.
Yeah, I mean, there's some drag in getting it to the consumer. But yeah, it's coming, and it's coming. It's here. So you get my drift. It's not like, oh, they'll never. It's like, but watch it. Imagine the argument they had with the advent of television. They thought that was going to cannibalize the movie business completely. It didn't. Bolstered the movie business. The bottom line is, more people are watching more movies more often than ever before, and that's good for you.
Wonderful. Now,
Score
on
to
that
10.
note, they're right here.
Hi, Ted.
Lovely people. They and many others have questions, and we have mics floating in the auditorium here. If anyone would like to ask a question, there's mics on either aisle. There's one.
What should we be tackling? What do you guys want to talk about?
Hi, I have a question. I'm not a director, I'm not a producer, I'm none of that. But my question is about Spring Awakening. Are you really going to make a screen adaptation of that?
Yeah, that's the intention. I mean, I was meeting with the studio yesterday about doing it. And, you know, it's a real conflict for me because that picture's in a place where I need to drill down and say, okay, I'm making Spring Awakening. And that to me is my, you know, that I'm more passionate about that than anything in the world. And I want to do it. And that's this small little movie. And I don't know, any of you guys see Spring Awakening? Yeah. You know, it's extraordinarily powerful. You know, I mean, I want to talk about a dramatic impetus. There's 3 characters in the piece. 2 die. 1 kills himself. 1 has an abortion gone south. And the last one has a knife in his throat ready to off himself. So it's a real big hit, pop fair. You know, it deals with incest, homosexuality, teen suicide, and child abuse.
And the music's great.
And the music's awesome. It's super pop, like fun, you know. But I mean, it's very, very heavy. And, you know, so the studios are scared of that picture, and I want to make that picture. But I mean, it's this little movie that I'll make for $10 or $15 million. And it would take as much time and energy as a movie that I would make for $150 million. So it's hard to get a seat at that table of studios saying, hey, we're comfortable with the way you manage, you know, the dollars on the table with this big juggernaut, you know, expensive visual effects, Green Lantern type picture. And clearly Martin Campbell is worthy of that investment. And, you know, we want to do that. When you say, no, I'm going to take myself out of that for 2 years. It's something I'd lose sleep over. I talk about sleeping well. But that's one thing I stay up at night and I think about because I want to do Spring Awakening, but I'm not hot to give up my seat at that table where people feel confident making the big event movies with me that are really fun to make. I like going to premieres in Moscow and Beijing. And from a really like artistic perspective, it's fun to touch the world and have the language barrier there, but everybody's getting excited about what you created. I mean, that's pretty cool. You know, I'm not hot to take myself out of that world and say, no, I'm just going to do my tiny little Spring Awakening thing, even though truthfully I want to do it all. So I'm deciding if I'm going to do Spring Awakening next or I'm going to do, you know, a big Hollywood movie next. But we're going to make Spring Awakening no matter what. I promise you that. And it will be without compromise. I mean, it will be, that is my, you know, milk. If I were a homosexual man and I was passionate about that whole dynamic, I'd be like, milk, and I'm doing it my way. You know, and Spring Awakening for me, I just feel that connectivity to that material. And I mean, from the band play of Frederick Wienekind, you know, in the late 19th century Germany to, you know, today's expression of, that is my #1 passion. So yeah, it's going to get made.
Great.
Yes.
Gentleman in front here.
Does he need the microphone?
I think so. Won't go out to the global universe.
Yeah? How are we doing? All right.
We're doing good.
Are we able to quantify the hits? We better have like 5 billion hits. Or tools down. I'm getting the hell out of here. Yes, sir.
Hey, McG, it's Billy again.
Hi, Billy.
Thanks again for coming.
Delighted to be here.
If anyone, Josh Schwartz or anybody else, were wanting to make a feature film of the OC, would you be down?
I mean, Josh is making a picture right now at Paramount. You know, he's making a Josh Schwartz branded picture at Paramount with this guy Adam Goodman who runs Paramount. So I just don't think there's an appetite for that, you know. So I don't know. We sort of had our moment. It was Josh's child. Josh is another SC guy. And that was we connected over the OC because he's like, I'm a Jewish guy from Providence, Rhode Island, and I'm here at SC, and this is weird. And I'm like, you know, I'm a red-haired freak from Newport Beach, California. I don't look like those guys either. And we just sort of like bonded on the Seth point of entry of, you know, our OC-ness. And I don't know. I don't know that Josh would want to do it. It'd be his choice, not mine. And I don't know if there's an appetite for that. I mean, what do you think?
I think there would be an appetite, but maybe not a great one. I think it just have to be a really, really good idea.
Well, Josh is pretty damn good. I don't know anybody any better, but, you know, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, they're making 21 Jump Street. They are, Jonah Hill. Oh, well. So who knows? It's up to Josh. Has Josh ever come and done anything for you guys?
Constantly.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Frequently, he's great.
Yeah, he's great. He's so smart.
The mic here.
Hi.
Hi.
What advice do you have for aspiring student directors for working professionally in the business?
Go get a job at a production company and spend as much time on a set as you possibly can. Get in the talent pool at Warner Brothers. Just get out there and do it. And just naturally, you're not going to make any dough. You're going to work really, really hard. Brian, come here. Brian, this is my assistant, Brian. Where did you go to school? She went to Emerson. Get down here and tell your story. Will you give her the mic, young man? Get up here, Brian.
Great, thank you.
This is Brian. She's all of how many years out of school?
1 year.
1 year? So what's your story? What happened?
Story is I went to a really great school. That
Take it
had-
easy. You know. Ba, da, 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 da.
Thank you. I went to a really great school. I had a great support system, and they had this program in LA. They said you got to go out there and learn about, get an internship at a production company and work really hard. So I submitted my resume everywhere. Came out here for a semester and worked with Tom Hanks at Playtone and Drew Barrymore at Flower Films. And then after that, I applied around town for a job. And I actually went to a temp agency, and they threw me to Wonderland. I interned there, or I temped there for a while, and then they picked me up. So it's just that constant drive to want to be out here and be in this business.
And where are you from?
I'm from South Dakota.
So you got a rich uncle in Hollywood?
No, I knew no one. And I wanted to make films, so I was like, I'm going to go to film school. And I chose Emerson because it was small. And yeah. I mean, I guess it was just my desire to be in this world or be in the film business that brought me here. Because I didn't have a rich uncle.
I want to do like a swimming with sharks thing and be really abusive. But thanks, Brian. Yes.
I've read that Kevin Spacey and David Fincher and probably some other of these big directors are, and we touched on this a little bit, they're making a series for Netflix, just solely for Netflix. And I was curious if you would ever take up a project like that, if you were offered.
Yeah, I think it's the future. You know what I mean? It's just, we just, just for fun, we should probably talk about it. There's a guy at Warner Brothers who runs new media. His name's Kevin Sujihara. Okay, and we just did a little thing. There's two Jacksons in here. We did a thing with Jackson Rathbone, one of the vampire kids from Twilight, who's a nifty little actor. And we did, 10 little 6-minute episodes of this thing called Aim High that Sujihara is going to take and, do a tricky deal, be it with Yahoo, be it with, Facebook, be it with you guys. I mean, I don't know. It's not my place to decide how he goes out and speaks to your community. But, everybody's trying to figure out that model and figure out what's going on because it's exciting. And why wouldn't you? And I can imagine Fincher's, Fincher, look, the guy's done enough. And he's interested in pleasing himself to a degree where he would only do it if he thought it was an interesting artistic outlet. And they must have given him free reign where he doesn't need to deal with anybody's headache. And he just gives you a genuine David Fincher branded offering, which is what we all want, don't we? I don't want the studio head's notes. I want Fincher to be Fincher and show me what he's got with the girl with the dragon tattoo. So it's very exciting. I've heard the scuttlebutt and the rumors about that whole thing, and I hope it comes to fruition. I would definitely want to do it. Everybody's doing it. Singer's doing it. It's just everybody's trying to figure out exactly what that means. And it's hard because they don't give you any dough because there's no dough there yet. So there's a direct dough relationship to what you can put on the screen.
Don't look at me.
Yeah. Well, it's true. I mean, if you're Fincher, you're like, well, I can go make a movie and do what I do and actually get paid for it, or I can work just as hard on the the Netflix offering, and who knows what's gonna happen. It's just it's asking a lot. I give that example of Super 8. I mean, it's like JJ's he's a busy guy. He's not just gonna do that to be the pioneer, but we're getting very, very close to that moment where somebody of that magnitude is gonna make that choice.
Is This Means War going to come out in multi-formats all at once?
I don't think they're there yet. I mean, that's up to Tom Rothman at Fox. But I wish I should have brought something from This Means War because who's so good in the movie is this guy Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy's Bane in Dark Knight Rises, and he was in Inception, and did anybody see Bronson? Super good, and he's out of his mind. And Reese is very good in The Picture, and Chris Pine. You know, it's just, you should get him to come down here. He's a very entertaining guy with an interesting path. But anyway, yeah, I'm into that. Lots of guys are into that, and you know, you need to be aware of where that's taking us. No sweat. Yes, sir, you.
No, right here.
Oh, hi.
Hi, my name is Gabriella. I'm actually an alum. And going back to where you're talking about working with indies and working possibly with the non-studio system, what would it take for you to get out of the Universal, Fox, major guys to go work with somebody like Summit, Over Voltage, or one of those guys where it's more of a passion piece where you have to kind of adjust yourself to the level that they work with?
Not much, because I just chase the creative that gets me excited. I mean, making a movie is so hard. It takes 2 years and it takes 10 off your life. You know, so it's just like, you gotta love it. If you don't love it, you're in the wrong place. I mean, it's not that sexy, you know what I mean? It's really hard. It's really, you know, fat Teamsters farting in the van at 4 o'clock in the morning, you know, and you're tired, and, you know, just everything's a problem, and, you know, it's raining, and it's a bummer, and nobody's on the same page. I mean, it's just constant adversity. And something Steven Spielberg says, somebody said, what's the toughest part about being a director? And I was blown away by his response. He goes, the questions. You know, just because the minute you walk in, it's just, you know, you just death by paper cut of every single person you see has a question, and it's the last dictatorship. You know, only the director can answer most of these questions. So, you know, you got to love it. And if Summit has something that I loved, and I see, you know, Melissa's poster out there for the Twilight series, you know, that's a Summit picture, and we have a picture with Voltage right now, you know, and, you know, yeah, I mean, it wouldn't take much at all. So I just follow the material, truthfully. So yeah, and I mean, that same thing with Spring Awakening. We're doing that with this little company, Endgame, that, you know, because it's just too rough for the studio system.
I noticed, and I'm very happy that you shoot a lot of action in your films, and there's a lot of explosions, and it's very hyper at times. And I was just wondering what some of your favorite action films are, and what your ideas are on shooting action on film.
My favorite action pictures are, you know, the second Terminator picture, Die Hard, because any film where the antagonist is equal to the protagonist, which you see with Rickman's portrayal of Hans Gruber, that's always awesome. And it informs the action, and then the breathtaking action of Driving Miss Daisy. No. No, and listen, the funny thing is like, it's fun to throw Bay under the bus. I think Bay is great. I think Bay does what he does better than anybody in the world. And what I would suggest, who wants to be a director out here? Okay, a lot of you, most of you, right? If you're going to be a director, you've got to have a point of view. I mean, one thing I can say, I would imagine a lot of you guys don't like what I do. That's cool. That's cool. But if you see one of my movies, I can definitely look you in the eye and say, you're watching one of my movies. You can't look at Charlie's Angels and go, what the fuck is that? You go like, oh, that's that McG guy. I hate that guy. Or I really like that guy. You know, it's like if you see Quentin Tarantino, don't you know you're in the presence of a Tim Burton? Woody Allen? Michael Bay. So it's certainly your privilege. I hate that. I hate that. That's fine. But don't be androgynous where it's just like, what was that? What was that vanilla thing that just kind of started? I don't even know what that was. That is a nightmare. Don't be that director. You know, have an imprint. Have a point of view. Be your own voice. That's for sure. You know, I mean, who likes a vanilla director? Ugh, awful, awful. Yes, sir. Do you need the microphone? Do we have 2 turntables and a microphone?
Go ahead. So I guess I'm having some problems writing a script right now that I want to direct. I had a writer in Boston, and he's kind of like, I can't pay him. And he's stopped returning my phone calls.
Yep.
So I guess I'm just going to try and write it myself.
Okay.
But I have a really hard time with writing because I like something, but then I hear like the critics' voices in my head like, oh, this is not good.
You got to stop that. I already feel what's going on.
Yeah.
If you're going to write, you have to eliminate editing from this stage of the process.
Yeah.
You cannot edit. It is the cosmic cock blocker of all time. And you've got to just barf it out on the page.
Yeah.
And then start to whittle away. There's no version of writing a first draft and going, that's it, I'm walking away. You know, it's not going to happen. So why would you impede your own progress under any circumstances? What's it about?
It's about Two guys who go on a road trip.
Two guys go on a road trip. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. What sets them on the road trip? What's the inciting incident?
Yeah, well, really, I don't know.
Well, what sets them on the road trip?
I mean, I'm trying to think. It's like, I want it to be like
Are
something.
they trying to figure out what it means to be? Are they two men?
They're running away from something. Some
Okay,
problems.
they're running away from something, like of a personal nature, or do they commit a crime?
Yeah, I was thinking personal nature, but committing a crime sounds interesting too.
Okay, well, they're running away from something, okay? Articulate what that is in the grabber, in the opening of your picture, okay? Limit that to certainly under 10 pages, probably 7 pages. Just that, if it's a girl breaking up, if it's, they robbed a liquor store, if, it's an inciting incident and they're running away from it. Get it done ugly. In 7 pages, certainly under 10, okay? And then just give yourself a good first act out, okay? On page 35, just go, what's going to carry this movie into a different direction? What are your two guys' names? Just say anything.
It's Joseph and Mike.
Okay, Joseph and Mike. Joseph and Mike are on the run, running away from this inciting incident because Joseph told Mike, I'm wanted by the cops for robbing a liquor store, and I didn't do it, okay? And Mike has got Joseph's back, so they go together in the Thelma and Louise tip, okay?
Yeah.
And then at the end of the first act on page 35, Joseph confides, I did it, and I killed a guy. Okay? And now they're on the run, and they're in for a penny, in for a pound. And you've now carried the film in a new direction, and you accelerate into your second act. Then just go at the midpoint of the film, I just want to be here. And then at the end of the second act, I want the destruction of the hero's plan, where all is lost, and it looks like it's curtains for these guys. Okay? And then just get into your resolution. And that might be 87 pages, and that might be 247 pages. It doesn't matter. But just get it out there and don't impede yourself from making progress. Or you're not that good and you shouldn't be doing this.
Well, no, you're good. Thanks. I mean, thank you.
Just do it. It's not going to be a great first draft, but you'll start to go, and by not impeding your own progress, you will discover, oh, that was good. I didn't know I was going to go there. You never make that discovery if you stop progress. That's for sure. Hey. Hi.
I see that Bay and Cameron, they're dabbling in 3D, creating new technologies. Then you have Nolan, who's saying that he doesn't want to dabble in 3D and he wants to stick with like 70 millimeter. Do you find yourself leaning, wanting to play in one of those 2 yards? Do you find it as like finding it as a shtick, or?
No, I mean, I'm not dogmatic in that regard. I mean, I'm open to 3D. I like it. I went down, like I said, to see Jim. When he was shooting Avatar, he had his gray field. He had the camera system. We played with it. It was an interesting tool. He's a very forward-thinking guy. And then how can you not be charmed by Nolan going 70? Nolan doesn't do digital intermediate. Nolan does traditional film timing. He's just such a purist and so on that thing. And it's charming, and, you can only be taken by that. But I don't watch movies that way. I really, really, I think it's important to do the following. You owe it to yourself to be technically proficient, and then you got to throw that all away. You know what I mean? And I think that's arguably the path of Picasso. You just you become very proficient, and then you realize that's not what it's about. You know what I mean? It's not about the technical proficiency of what you've done. That can occasionally add a seasoning, but I certainly don't watch films that way. If I'm not immersed totally in the story and what's going on, letting go of 3D, letting go of 70 millimeter, letting go of the stock that it was shot on, letting go of, oh, that was Panavision Ultra Speeds or that was Primos, I don't care. You know what I mean? It's like you should be technically proficient, then let it go, and never let that be the focal point of your energy. That was something that was hard for me to learn because I was super into being technically proficient. And I'll say with respect, I think I shoot really beautiful movies. They're luxuriant, they're expansive. I think they're very pretty to look at. I think I light women well. I think I do action well. I mean, I'm really proud of that. But people go, gosh, your stuff looks so, the picture I just made right now, they're like, God, it looks so beautiful. And I'm strangely offended by it looks beautiful. I feel like they're going like, God, your picture's so in focus. I'm like, it's supposed to be in focus. I don't care that it's beautiful. It's like, it's supposed to be, beautiful is a given. 3D exciting, 70 millimeter exciting. It's like, what's your story? What's your character development? I mean, who's the least technically proficient guy of all time is Woody Allen. And I'll take Annie Hall from its, originality just about any day of the week. So I just never give disproportionate energy to getting caught up in, unless you want to, immerse yourself in being a technician, and there's certainly a great world for that. And, but if you want to be a director, you have to have a technical understanding and a technical proficiency and awareness of this is what 3D can afford me. This is what if I shoot in 70 millimeter I can get done. But be willing to let all that go. Because, you know, we were talking about Fincher. You know what's cool about Fincher? Fincher is like Prince, okay? Because Prince could be up there like, you know, playing bass, and go like, oh, you know I'm a better drummer than you, right? You know what I mean? Like, you know, he's a better dancer, better singer, better everything. And Fincher's like, well, he can just shoot a look at the gaffer, and the gaffer's like, I know you're better than I am, you know? You know, and the DP and the costume designer and the production designer and the editor, you know, and the visual effects guy, you know, it's the whole thing. And there's a real power that comes with that level of mastery, you know? But if you get hung up on that, you get Zodiac. Is this thing on? Anyway, who likes Zodiac? Boo. Who are you people? I like Zodiac, sort of.
There's a question there in front.
Yes, sir.
How much do you participate in castings and stuff, and what thoughts do you have for actors, I guess, that might be?
I think I mean, listen, I completely and totally and utterly, all right, which is the antithesis of the technical discussion. So you got to be there and you got to be talking about, you know, the phantom camera and what it is, and then you got to go over here, you know, talk to an actor in a way that the actor wants to be spoken to. Look, I'm fighting an uphill battle every time I do anything in my life. Nobody wants to be in a McG movie. You know what I mean? I mean, except girls, you know, it's like, you know, the girls do because I light them pretty, you know, because I get good DPs and I make them look good. But, you know, nobody, you know, and even the girls, Cameron didn't want to do Charlie's Angels, and I couldn't get Bale to take my call. Oh my God, you know? And Sam Rockwell, and nobody wanted to do it, and, you know, just Tom Hardy, nobody wants, I am not actor bait. Okay, so you have to go in and you have to articulate what you're trying to achieve. And if you want to talk to an actor and you want to land an actor, talk to the actor. Best thing you can do. You can say, this is who you are at the beginning of the picture, and this is who you are at the end of the picture. And if there's a great deal of separation between those two, that is an arc. And every actor is going to want to be a part of that. That is, and by the way, surround yourself with material that affords you that. Because a lot of that material doesn't afford that. You want to say, you got to be able to look, you know, DiCaprio in the face and go, this is who you are at the beginning of the picture, and by the end of the picture, you become this. And we see that here, and we see it here, and then we suggest it here, and it goes, and, you know, that's very powerful. And that will, you know, that will transcend a lot. So yeah, Altman says 90% of directing is casting. You know, so yeah, it's kind of true. I think it's really true. So.
Wendy, how are we on time? How many more questions?
Well, it's kind of up to you, David. We're actually over time right
Ah, fuck!
David, how many more questions?
I think we take about 5 or 6 more questions, if that's okay.
Sure.
Cool.
Wait, I want to talk to these guys, man. What's your film on?
It's a story about a girl traveling through the transitory space between death and whatever comes after that.
That's fantastic. And what's your expression of what that is?
A lot of it takes place in a white void,
Okay.
and then cutting back and forth between her life and that space.
How long is it?
It'll be about 3 to 5 minutes.
That's fantastic. I'm completely piqued curiosity. So it's not up yet. It's not done yet.
No, we're in the middle of editing right now, actually.
So you're doing a white void, kind of like, you know, Neo and the guns flying by.
Sort of the way.
Just white psych.
Yeah, the way that we the way we pulled it off is by exploiting the blowout effect on digital cameras.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really exciting, a lot of fun. But,
okay. So
yeah.
what's your answer? Is there an afterlife?
It doesn't actually decide whether there's an afterlife or not, but
Terrence Malick fan. Who here believes in the afterlife? Who thinks nothingness just ceased to exist?
Nothingness ceases.
Oh, the nihilists. All right, cool.
Yeah, but speaking of editing, that's what my question was going to be about. When you're working on your films, how much of your original story changes once you get to that editing process.
Well, hopefully if you were able to prep properly and you had a firm command over what you were doing, not a whole hell of a lot. I mean, there's a lot. Listen, it's just filmmaking is 3 decided components, unbelievably segmented components. Pre-production, okay? You get it together, you cast it, you get your script together, you prep it, you figure out what we're going to shoot. Pre-production, okay? And then the day, production, okay? It's like there's what's intended and there's what goes down on the day, especially when you don't walk through that into the proscenium and get it done. You're behind the camera and the actor goes in there and gets it done, okay? So the day, you can have the best plan, and believe me, you're doing yourself a disservice. If you're so wound uptight what your plan is and your actor's like, I'm not down with the plan, now what? You know, you need to be flexible enough to, again, make it feel like this their idea, take them on a little walk, and figure out how to get what you want, and then post. Where, ultimate example of the power of post. Go to YouTube and check out, you know, Shining. Do you guys know this fake trailer for The Shining? Okay, same footage, same everything, different music cue, the guy doing the VO, and it feels like a joke, but it's an unbelievably potent example of the power of post. They took the exact same and turned it into a romantic comedy to the point where it could have been a romantic comedy. And we all think it's funny because you go, I know The Shining. You know what I mean? But that's how important post is. In tone and takeaway, rhythm, language, unbelievably important. So there's 3 just spectacular and equally important components. And post, so it's going to change, but I don't think it should be revolutionized or you didn't have your act together in prep.
Tony, are you asking because your film is changing underneath your fingers?
A little.
Well, but do you have a clear idea of what you want it to be?
Yes. Yes, I
Are you
definitely
able
do.
to make that pull down from what is intended and what you get on the day?
Yes.
Then it shouldn't be that big of a revolution in post.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a skill set unto itself. There's that which is intended in your brain, and there's the ability to imprint that in 1s and 0s, or dare I say celluloid. You know, it's just, that's a skill set too. You know, so you gotta get all those things cooking. And cool. Sounds like an interesting picture. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What's your film about?
It's about it's a political social satire about a man who starts to think for himself, and he now has to deal with this like supernatural kind of bureaucratic agency.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you express that?
It's a comedy. It's when you basically boil down to it, it's not like anything like super. Well, he does end up in like a really dark void, opposite to what he did in a weird way. So like, you know, everywhere's pitch black around him except for one spotlight. But he starts off in his living room, and you know, he has a lot of absurd encounters with this agency called the Bureau of Conscious Intervention.
Okay.
So yeah.
Are you pleased with the way it's turning out?
Yeah. So yeah, I am.
Cool.
But my question is, my name's Naheem Adio, by the way. I'm one of the YouTube creators, and my question is, you kind of answered this earlier. You know, you were saying that we should go to a production office, but like I have a feature-length script. Where would I walk to, or what, you know, or who do I show it to, or how do I get it through to somebody?
Well, that's a different route. You know what I mean? I mean, what's your goal? Do you want to write? You want to direct? You want to produce?
Writer, director.
Okay. I mean, the best thing to do with that, in my view, is befriend a junior agent, a guy who just became an agent at William Morris Endeavor or CAA or UTA, because they're reading everything and it's their job to find the next you. Okay, and if they miss it and it goes to CAA instead of William Morris, Ari Emanuel's going to be pissed. So that is the best way in. It's not, oh, send it to Warner Brothers and hopefully they're going to make your movie. Your movie's never going to get made on that route anyway. You'd have to do the route through the agency to give you enough stick to have a real chance of getting it made, and you will have concurrently gotten an agent, and the agent will get on the phone and speak on your behalf and tell everybody this is the hot new voice in town. Naheem's doing his thing. Come see him if you want your, you know, new film to be great, you know, and you can do a rewrite and start to, you know, earn a reputation, or you can write original material and get it done in that capacity. But either way, that's going to be a much more legitimate point of entry than just like, people can't even accept, Brian, like we can't even open an envelope that gets sent to us because it's like a legal bummer, you know, because if we open it and somebody go, oh, you read my script, you took my idea. It's like people can't even deal with that. So there's no fruit going down that road. It's much better to, you know, find out, oh, this guy was on a desk as an assistant at an agency and now they just made him a junior agent. I can promise you he doesn't have a whole hell of a lot going on. And he's got the wrath of the brass, you know, breathing down his neck. That's the girl. That's the guy you want to talk to. You know, because now they're an agent and they know how to get to all the executives at the studios to get your film made. Because you can't do it on your own. You know what I mean, in that regard, unless you went and shot it on your own, that's different. But I would recommend that. And don't go to the big boppers. Go to like people who just became agents because they're like, they want an incoming phone call. They don't have a whole hell of a lot of them. That's how.
Thanks.
Sure.
Do we have any more questions? Yes, back there. Sir.
Me?
Yes.
Oh, hi. Hi. My name's Matt. I'm a future student here.
Right.
And you spoke a little bit about casting and actors, and I wanted to know, one of my great joys in directing is working with actors. But I find that every actor works differently.
Right.
Do you have any methods that you'd like to share with us about working with any of those like big name, like kind of ego actors? The ones that have a persona even before they come in the room.
I don't think there's any difference between big name ego actors and little actors. I mean, I think, you know, some people are easy to work with, some people are more difficult to work with, and like you, I find joy in that. I like that.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't repel me, but I think, again, just communicate. Communicate, and most particularly, communicate before you walk out onto the set. Okay, so if you have a scene, just talk about, you know, go the day before or as early as you can, but, you know, just for simplicity's sake, the day before. You comfortable with tomorrow's scene? You want to run it once? Let's listen to the music of the scene. Run it. They're probably going to flag a line where they go, I never really liked that line. Talk to them. Go, yeah, but that's the emotional pivot of the scene. I think that's real important. Here's why I like it. They may have an idea that turns you on and go, wow, I never thought it's a better idea.
Yeah.
Make the change. Hear them. Be firm and let them know that you have command of the material, and don't let the wolf into the hen house. But by the same token, listen to what the actor has to say and don't have them leave it all on the rehearsal stage.
Yeah.
So just do sort of a first gear kind of walk through so they're comfortable and they're ready to go tomorrow. And then just check in briefly in the morning and go, you cool, you ready to go today? What we talked about yesterday, everything feel all right? And they'll go, yeah, I'm ready to do it. You know, depending if it's a very heavy dramatic scene or a funny scene or whatever it may be, just trust your instincts in regard to what you're going to do to position yourself to be successful. You know, and then you have to roll with the punches. I mean, because then people do get crazy or people do get quiet or whatever, or don't give you what you want.
Yeah.
You know, and then you have to find a way to reach them and communicate what you're trying to achieve and why you think it's best. And that's very, very difficult because nobody's living in your mind. You know, they're living in their mind and they're seeing the picture the way they see it.
Yeah.
And often through the egomaniacal lens of the actor who thinks that they're always going to be number one on the call sheet. You know, so you got to manage that to some degree, but just communication, get out in front of it. If there's going to be a problem, flag that problem early. Because, you know, if you have those problems on the day, you're not, for your own benefit, you're not going to be successful and you're not going to get hired. Because people feel like you can't control your set, man. Enough. Next guy, you're in. He's out. You know, just too much. Just whatever. I don't want to hear why or why not. You know, I gave you the opportunity. You're out there. You knew that you're going to be dealing with actors. Actors are crazy. Get ahead of it. You know, there's no sympathy. So you would be wise to get ahead of any issues, get the actor comfortable, and create an opportunity to have a smooth day. Because the sun waits for no man if you're daylight exterior. You know what I mean? You want to have all those things worked out.
Cool. Thank you.
Take one more question.
It better be good.
It better be good.
I had a more personal question, actually. If you could have lunch with anyone, living or dead,
Freddie Mercury.
Where would you go for lunch?
What's that?
Where would you go for lunch?
Probably, you know, no, that's a good question. But I mean, for me, it is Freddie Mercury. You know what I mean? Because I like larger than life characters, and you know, I like Freddie Mercury. He's just sort of like a wacky, bisexual hero of mine. That you know, with buck teeth, and he's a singer of Queen. And it's just you know, lived a tortured life, and we'd probably go to this place called the Crab Cooker down in Newport Beach. It's been there for like, you know, 80 years. It's the oldest building down there, and I can just imagine eating halibut, and you know, if Freddie got a little tartar sauce in his mustache, I could expire right there, and I'd be a happy man.
Ladies and gentlemen, this will conclude our Distinguished Speaker Series for the YouTube group. I thought we're off camera now. There is something about saving the best for last, and will you please join me in a round of applause for our guest, McG.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. And it truly, if nothing else, just get out there and do it. That script, just keep writing. If you want to shoot, you got to shoot it. Just shoot it. Post it on YouTube. See if people respond. Just do it, and you will be pleased with the result. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.